Hey everyone, this is Brian F Studios again. This is part 6 and probably the last part of the Saint Agnes Mixing Sessions. Um, for those of you who haven't been following along with all the other videos, to just catch you up to speed, what this is Saint Agnes is a British rock band. I'm not really sure how long they've been out because I haven't done a lot of research on them, but they got together with Lewitt microphones, Lewitt Audio, to do this promotion. And what they did is that Lewitt recorded a live show that they did, just one song that they offered with their microphones at a club. And then they offered the public, who are people that are doing this in their homes, mixing in their homes, recording in their homes, or do it for a more professional level, whatever. They offered it for free to download all the stems, the multi tracks, mix them, upload that mix back to Lewitt to enter in a competition to where you can win something like $2,000 worth of their microphones or something like that. Anyway, I figured, what the hell, I'd like to see what the pro industry level actually considers a good live recording. And I downloaded the tracks and I listened to them and I was kind of disappointed. I mean, I have like records, the 1980 Blues Brothers album record, live record. It's a fabulous sounding album, and it's live, and sounds way better than the quality of the recording in this track, in this song. And I've have live recordings of Judas Priest, things like that, way back in the 70s and stuff, that sound way better as far as their recording quality went than what we were given to work with this track. So yeah, I was really disappointed with just how poorly it was done. The mic placement wasn't optimal. I mean, we can't really complain that they're on a small stage and we're having to deal with that because that's just how it is. But the recording engineer, the mixing engineer on that end of it, used compression on the channels while it was coming in that just fucked with everything, because you're mixing and everything together and you're hearing the bleed come through on from another instrument, and as the compression on the mic that's picking up that bleed is going up and down because it's picking up another signal that's triggering that compression for being too hot or something through there, it just affects with the tone of everything coming through on the mix. So all that had to be cleaned up. So the first thing we did, we took this 25 track setup and brought it down into 13 tracks, because that's really all that's needed to do this, is just 13 tracks for this particular song and how it was recorded. And then we did cleanup, got it all arranged, did the cleanup by doing editing, some gating, and just some simple little processes like on and off stuff, switches here and there in the mixer. Because there was issues where a lot of the input jacks had a lot of noise in them, a lot of dirt and a lot of just crud. You hear them and they're going when their instrument isn't playing, and that's just awful. It's fucking horrible. So that had to be taken care of. Also, even though the tone of the drums and stuff through the mic sounded pretty good, there was times like with the floor tom where when the drummer hit it, all you really got was that thwack of the attack and there's no resonance. So that's something that has to be addressed here in the mix as well. Also, the resonance of the floor tom was around the same resonance that the kick was really showing itself at. So the kick was coming through stronger on one side than it was on the other side because of how it was being picked up by the floor tom. So the floor tom mic had to be dealt with for that. Vocals were just very, very slightly auto-tuned in order to bring up the worst parts, the worst pitchy parts, back up into a more acceptable range. Other than that, we left them alone so that they still sounded really natural. And it's just a lot of time. I think I've spent maybe 6 hours or so total, maybe longer, doing all that kind of stuff. But now I am ready to actually work on the actual mix, start adding in the kind of effects and the placements and stuff to get this thing to sound, finished, to get it done, and then do a little bit of mastering on it, because being this is a one-off track, I don't need to worry about how it blends in with everything else that's going on to a particular album. So I'm just going to master it right after I get done with the mix on the same file program here. I'm not going to change anything out. I'm not going to dump the mix down to 2 channels or anything. It's just going to get a quick master and be done with it. All right, so what to do at this point is just start it off. I'm going to work on this thing in sections so I can change the effects programming around. All right, here we go. Okay, so that's going to be the basic start with this mix. Now I'm going to start adjusting individual things, trying to bring up the low floor tom again when I got rid of the effects that added the extra resonance to it. I'm just kind of dinking around with all that little kind of shit. So we're going to go ahead and go back to the beginning. Put this on the auto record feature. And I'm just going to turn the mix off at the moment to get an idea of just what I want to do next. Okay, so yeah, I'm liking this part. All right, so at this point, I'm going to change the effects over. Okay, so I think at the moment that's where I'm going to leave the effects set up for the guitar now, that level and the type of effect. It's just an early reflection. It gives there a little more fullness to the guitar without adding a bunch of delay. And, you know, stupidly enough, the effects that I'm putting in place are kind of making it sound like it's still a live recording. We're going back to that live recording sound, but there's really no way to get over it because it was recorded live, and in the mic channels it's still picking up as a live recording. So we have to work with the material we're given. We can't change it a whole lot. There's not a lot we can do unless you're in a DAW where you can go through with MIDI replacement samples, things like that. But that's not the point of this mix. This point of this mix is to actually make their real performance with their real instruments sound as good as they possibly can. So I want to go back to that snare, or not the snare hit. I want to go back to that other floor tom hit when they start getting into the vocal section. It sounds pretty weak. I want to see what's going on there because in earlier videos I thought I had it pretty good. So I'm going to A-B that section. Let's see what it's looking like here. It's got a strong hit. Just not picking up very well in my opinion. Might be because of how the dynamics have been changed. Let's go ahead and stop this. Turn the auto mix feature off. And now let's see about changing the dynamics. Man, I don't hear it at all. I'm going to switch over to headphones and see what the hell happened. It shows us there. Not liking it. Something's really changed on it. It's gotten pretty darn quiet. Let's solo it out again. Okay, so I'm going to need to add some more resonance to that particular floor tom hit as well. So I'm going to go back to the setting I had before and just basically switch the effects around right there with the guitar channel and whatnot to see what we can do. So we're going to turn the auto mix back on, and I'm going to back this thing up to the first tom hit. Okay, so we're going to see what it's going to be like if I just quickly bring that effect back into it where the tom or that the floor tom hits and get that extra resonance there and then bring it back into the early reflections for the guitar. That worked. So now I need to work on going back to the original guitar effect. I think I like that. Alright, so I've compressed the floor tom even harder for just certain sections like this. So it can get more resonance brought out just from the tom itself without adding the other effects. And it helps eliminate that, well, not eliminate, but tame the transient from hitting the tom. So I'm going to be adding that in here as well. All right, now let's just see how that affects the rest of it.
I hear you breathing. I hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking.
Well, the first hit sounded a lot better, so let's go ahead and turn the auto mix feature back on.
I hear your bones creaking. Go to the country when I go to catch you, I'll fall right through you. I so cruel, I so cruel to me, I so cruel. You really don't have to be, you really don't have to be. You're so busy making enemies. I hear you, I hear you, I hear you, I hear you.
I'm going to go ahead and update that.
I hear you, I hear you. I hear you, I hear you. Across the room, you move like a ghost, but I don't see.
All right, so I don't know if I want it to have that big whomp right at that point when we come back into that section there.
You move like a ghost, you move like a ghost across the room. You move like a ghost, but I don't see you. I hear you move.
I think we're good at the moment. Okay, so in this section here, that background vocal needs to come up just a hair. That'll be a spot for it. So just about at the 0 point on the fader.
You move like a ghost.
And update that. Save. Okay, well, the vocals still sound a bit dry, like they need something. Alright, so we're going to try to figure out what to do with the vocals just to make them sit in better with the rest of the music.
You so cool, you really don't have to be. You really don't have to be. You're so busy making enemy.
I think to start, we'll just turn up the early reflections effect like we're using on the guitar, and just see how that sits with them. Right there. Let's back it up and get those dialed in.
You move like a ghost. You move like a ghost across the room.
Update that. Now that the keyboard's not playing anymore, we can change the effects there and use them for something else in here as well. Maybe more on the vocals. We'll just play with it and see what happens.
You move like a ghost, but I don't see you. I hear you move. You move like a ghost. You move like a ghost across the room. You move like a ghost, but I don't see you. I hear you breathing. I hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking.
Okay, just adding that chorus in there just ever so slightly, widened them out, made them a little wider sounding, filled them up. Might actually be something usable here. I'm going to set it up so that we actually use it and just see how it goes. We might change it later on. I don't know. We'll find out.
Ever so slightly.
You move like a ghost. You move like a ghost across the room. You move like a ghost, but I don't see you.
We'll set it up right there.
You move like a ghost. You move like a ghost across the room. You move like a ghost, but I don't see you. I hear you move. You move like a ghost. You move like a ghost across the room. You move like a ghost, but I don't see you. I hear you breathing. I hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking.
All right, that needs something as well. It just sounds a little shallow there. I might be bringing in everything to dead center right there. Keyboards track 9, right? Yeah, keys are in track 9.
I hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking.
And then the volume probably needs to come up a bit.
I hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking.
louder.
I hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking.
That works. Let's go ahead and bring back in the rotary effect.
I hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking.
Okay, and bring it in right back there.
I hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking.
Still want to make a little bit more width and thickness in that keyboard at just that spot. So we're going to bring the keyboard's early reflections channel up and see what happens.
Breathing, I hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking.
That works, but now we need to turn that keyboard down a little bit. Too much.
I hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking.
Okay, in this section, I want there to be some interplay between the guitar and the vocalist, as if she's chasing the guitar around, trying to, as if it's the ghost or whatever.
You really don't have to be. You really don't have to be. You're so busy making enemies.
So we're going to do that with panning and volume.
Don't have to be. You really don't have to be. You're so busy making enemies.
It's better, but there needs to be some other effects on there.
You really don't have to be. You're so busy making enemies. I hear you. I hear you.
I think I like that. We'll put that in there. Okay. So far, so good. But I want to do a little EQ work there, because when the idea is that she's supposed to be farther away, she's running around the room or whatever. At least how I'm doing this. And as she's going to be doing that, of course, what we're going to hear is there's going to be less low frequencies coming through from what we hear. It's just more mid-range, things like that. So I'm going to just see what I can do with that. I do like that, but now it's going to mean that I need to pull the volume up a little higher on that vocal channel. I want to check out the EQ curve there on the guitar, and I'm going to see if I need to play with any roll off in there.
I need you, I need you.
Okay, so it's still set up with just a low shelf with that centering at 125 hertz with a negative 10.5 dB, and then a bump in 4K at 7 dB. I'm not going to change that to high pass. I think I'm just going to play with pulling down the low shelf even more.
You really don't have to be. You're so busy making enemies. I need you.
Not much. I think that'll actually work. Okay, right there at the end, it feels like it needs something else as well, so it's not so dry. Maybe we'll try a left center right channel delay setup, see how that works out. Maybe make it a different kind of setup. Maybe we'll do a delay into a delay paralleled with a reverb. See how that sounds. We'll just change that in the events list here. Maybe a little more acceptable for now. All right, well, I've been working on this for about an hour and 45 minutes now today. So I think at this point I'm going to take a break, and then when I come right back in the video, I think I'm going to work on making some more fine-tuned adjustments to just individual things in the tracks, because at this point it's almost to the point to where I feel like it's done. You know, there's not a lot left to do with it. There's a few more things I can hear in my mind that I want to do to this track, but right now it's break time. Maybe I'm going to go get myself something to eat, and we'll be back in just a moment. All right, everyone, welcome back. This is back from the break, kinda. Actually, I went on break. I ended up going to town, get myself something to eat, came back and was cooking and everything, and I'm thinking, like, I'm going to transfer the files from the camera over to the computer that I have right there now, because I've got a 64 gig card in this camera, and I didn't really know how much data it had used in creating the video so far. But like I said, I've been working on it for about almost 2 hours, and in the settings I have on the camera, it said there'd be about 3 hours, 45 minutes, something like that. So I figured I'd just free up some space because I didn't know how much more time I'd be taking to try to finish up the mix on this album. But when I'm doing the transfer via the USB, it's telling me it's going to take 9 hours to transfer the data. And I just said, fuck that. I'm going to let it keep transferring, and I'm just going to keep working on the mix until I'm satisfied with it. So I was here till about 9 in the evening when I finally said, you know what? I think this mix is done. And what I did, basically just to kind of bring everything back together, get all the loose ends tied up here, and let you guys know what happened is I went through and I applied the effects to the things that we had talked about in the previous video in part 5. To enhance some of the bad floor tom hits, to make them stand out a little better, a dynamic phaser was employed that was had the settings tweaked just to kind of give it a little more oomph in that low end. We made changes, or I made changes to the dynamics properties set up for the vocals and stuff, because as I added effects and other things, the way the vocals just came out, their perceived loudness was different. So I had to change levels, I had to change dynamic settings, I had to change a lot of that stuff around. I also added a little mild chorus to the vocals to just kind of help thicken them up, as well as replaced on the same early reflections reverb that I used on the guitar to just kind of glue everything together. And I ended up having to tweak the EQ a little bit for the female vocalist. I wanted to make her higher frequencies where the sibilances and stuff are stand out a little better, because the kind of mics they were using didn't really capture that. They were darker mics and darker colored mics, and I like a little more high-end frequencies to be present with my mic setups and how I capture things. To me, it makes it stand out better amongst the rest of the mix. Everybody's always complaining about how do you get rid of the mud. Well, you got to cut down those frequencies that create the mud, which are usually the low-mid frequencies. But then you want the vocals or whatever else that rests in the upper frequency bands to stand out better. You pump up, I mean, it doesn't have to be a lot, but you push up the higher frequencies. Like from 3K on up, you can get the sibilance back in that maybe your mic of choice didn't really capture because it's a darker colored microphone. And it may sound good like that on its own, but when you put it in with an entire piece of music, it might not really be the best choice. Also, I added in some other effects in certain areas, like in the vocal section where the vocalist is saying, I hear you, I hear you. I wanted to use kind of an interplay between the guitar and the vocalist, as if the guitar was supposedly the ghost or whatever, running around different places, and the vocalist, she's basically running around trying to find the ghost. And the guitar does its little wah-wah sound. And she goes, I hear you, I hear you. So in doing that, I just try to give it this idea that there's some kind of movement going on away from the microphones, throughout a room, give it a little more depth than just being left-right without actually going to a full surround setup. I automated interplay between the guitar and the vocalist, for panning, level, EQ, running a high-pass filter in and out to kind of simulate as they're moving away and coming back forward, and increasing and decreasing the interplay of the early reflections reverb on the vocals themselves, as well as adding a slight echo delay program in there just to kind of change things up a bit, and so it's not all the same thing going on through the whole song. There was also a couple points where I wanted to add a swell effect, where it sounds like something's swelling up to build up to a more aggressive, more dynamic, louder, more energetic section. And there was 2 points in this song where I heard that idea in my head that I wanted to translate onto the recording here. I've already have both of my effects processors in this machine in use, so I couldn't really use those to create that effect on the spot. So I had to actually create the effect itself and print it onto separate tracks and then use the track controls to make that happen in 2 different sections. Other things that basically took up a lot of the time, because I was working on this for probably another 3 to 4 hours after I went on break. It's basically just playing the song back over and over, listening to it, and thinking, okay, this doesn't sound quite right. It's not balanced quite right. And it's usually just a level thing. It's like, okay, it needs to be dropped down maybe a dB, maybe 2 dBs. Sometimes it's even a fraction of a dB. And then in certain cases, like the vocalist, I'm not really using a real compression on the vocals. I'm using a compander, and I'm using it to add a little bit of compression as well as a gate to the vocals, but it's still not a strong enough compression that it evens out the vocalist's performance to where she's at a fairly constant volume. So you still kind of get the problem where she comes in and out on her levels as she's moving around the stage, singing in the mic and holding it in various positions and whatnot. So at certain points, I did have to ride the faders and bring them up or down to try and just even out the volume there. But anyway, that's where a lot of the time was spent. And just using the effects to try and enhance, and then switching over to more ambient effects for certain sections, and just making the 3 parts of this song glue together to one coherent piece. And so I'm pretty happy with where it is now. I really like where it is. One of the other things, the other kind of effects that I had to create was something we hear a lot of, like on ghost stories, television stories, and sound effects for ghosts. They had that gated reversed reverbs. And I don't know, I might have overdid it by overusing that effect here, but I was having fun playing with it, so I got it in there as what it is. I'm happy with it, and I'm just going to leave it as it is for now. This is going to be what I officially say is the finished mix. It's not the mastered mix, but it is the finished mix in my opinion. Okay, so I've got this thing queued up to where you can hear the original version of this song, the original mix. And we'll go ahead and play that for you guys right now. right, that is how the recording actually sounded. That is how their sound engineer or the recording engineer, who, if it was theirs or the club's, I don't know, that's how they set them up. So let's go ahead and listen to the mix I created from that recording. All right, so that is F Studios mixed. This isn't mastered. This is just a straight mix. Now, it doesn't really need a lot of work in mastering. I mean, for one, it's a one-off, so I don't need to worry about how this is going to blend with other songs on the album, because there are no other songs. There is no album. It's just a one-off track. Since I mixed it, I put in a lot of time to where there wasn't going to be a lot of dynamic inconsistencies, like the kick didn't come through too strong when it wasn't really supposed to, or the snare or anything like that. No frequencies were coming in and out where they're not supposed to be. So there's not really a lot left to do as far as mastering goes. But all I will do with this is I am thinking of just adding a limiter to it to kind of tame the transients a little bit so I can pump up the rest of the volume a little higher. And after that, I'm probably going to maybe play with a little bit of the higher frequency EQs on the overall mix. This track is in basically 3 parts. What I want to do is I want to go to the loudest section, and that's where I'm going to figure out how I want to apply my limiter. And then that way the limiter is the same. I'll apply it the same across all 3 parts. And that should in itself lend some congruity to how everything glues together once I start doing this mastering process. Okay, so just as it is, my drums are kind of hovering around the negative 2 dB to 0 dB mark. Keyboard, though, is just pretty quiet, around negative 14 dB. The guitars are getting up to about negative 6.
You move like a ghost. You move like a ghost across the room. You move like a ghost, but I don't see you. I hear you.
The vocals are coming in, they're kind of getting up there around negative 6 dB also.
You move like a ghost. You move like a ghost across the room. You move like a ghost, but I don't see you.
Alright, so I'm going to just jump forward in the song. And so let's kick it up to the second part of the song, where the second section, just after this. Okay, in this section right here, this is where we're starting to see more power coming from the guitars and the bass and stuff. So I think this is going to be the section where I put the limiter in and I start playing with it and just see what it's going to sound like, just right here. So I'm going to A-B this section. And then we're going to turn off the auto mix so I don't have to keep fighting with that. And we'll just check it out. No limiter. Turn the limiter on. No change, so that's good. Okay, so here I'm having a 6 dB reduction, and now I'm actually gonna turn the volume up, see what we get. Not bad. I don't really hear that there's a lot of pumping there. I think it sounds pretty good. And now I'm going to interplay. Well, I'm just going to go back and forth with the limiter on as it's set and off. Start with it off. Turn it on. Okay, I hear that it's louder. Other than that, everything in my ears sounds really close to like it does without having the actual limiter turned on. So I think this is a good start. I'm going to actually save this data so I can use it in the other three sections, or the other two sections. I still want to try having some EQ put on it on the final touch. I think it'll sound pretty good with a little additional equalization. Let's just play with it and on the first section of this track, see how it sounds. I think just doing that made all the difference in the world. I only touched the high end, not the low end. So I'm going to apply this to the scenes for the masters. I think that sounds good there, but is it going to be a difference if I place that EQ before or after the compression, the limiter? Right now, the EQ is actually, it's before the limiter, so let's set that up. That's EQ after the limiter. EQ before the limiter. I can't hear a difference at this point. See, technically, just imagine this in my head. With the EQ set up before the limiter, that means if there's any spikes in any level, any frequency of the EQ, that'll make the limiter come in and compress everything down. If we set it up so that the EQ comes after the limiter then compresses everything, and then at that flat output from the limiter, it gets an even level of EQ applied to it. So maybe, just thinking of things, it might be better to set the EQ up after the limiter. And now I'm going to go to the louder section of the song just to see how this whole thing is going to sound. I don't know, man. I'm feeling like I want the cymbals in that section to come out more. Since I haven't really messed with the mix and running the master off of just a two channel mix down, I can still look at changing that right there. I'm going to go ahead and play with that a little bit. And the overheads are 3 and 4. Man, they got to be boosted up a lot just to hear any kind of difference, and there's not really a lot of difference there. So maybe I should do it on the master channel if I can get away with different kind of EQ setting. Maybe a little of both. We'll update that mix as it is and just do a small adjustment in the 4K range. I'm just going to add a 3 dB boost on the master channel. We're going to automate that in. I liked it. I'm going to try to make it a little cleaner though. I like that. It gives it a hell of a lot more energy and just something nasty about it right there in that section. And then, boom, just right back to the nice kind of a groovy tune and groovy beat and sound right at the very end of that last section of the song. Okay, so here I am actually going to play the fully mastered track.
hear you breathing. I hear your bones creaking. Go to the touch, go to the touch without the moon. Go to the country when I go to catch you, I fall right through you. I you so cool, I so cool to me. I so cool, you really don't have to be. You really don't have to be. You're so busy making enemies. I hear you, I hear you. I hear you, I hear you.
All right, so that was the full mix and master over the course of the last 5 videos plus this one of this song, You Move Like a Ghost, live recording from the band Saint Agnes. All right, so if any of you guys watching want any kind of help or anything, F Studios here does offer online mixing and mastering. So if you have anything that you want to have mixed and mastered for you, feel free to get in touch with me. You can get a hold of me through the Facebook page off of F Studios Music and Video. You can reach me through YouTube. You guys take it easy. Thanks for watching these videos, and this is Brian at F Studios. You have a good night.